Hello and welcome back. My name is Dr. Christopher Chineri, and this is Great Big History Podcast. This is episode 2, Get Rich or Die Trying. Success and Disaster at the Start of Urban Civilization. So when we left off, we were talking about nomadic peoples. From the beginning of humans walking upright, they had to move looking for food. So people have a problem, and that problem, and if you've ever seen A Bug's Life, you know this, is food. Food equals survival. So you have to wander for food, which brings you into conflict with other humans and animals and nature. And it means you need protection, warmth, and protein. So what people start doing about 25,000 years ago is domesticating animals for help. People start domesticating dogs around 23,000 years ago, and that brings protection plus hunting. Like, you can't sneak up on someone with a dog. They have better hearing, good smell. They add, you can fall asleep now, and you know a dog will wake you. Around 11,000 years ago, we start domesticating sheep. You shear sheep, it produces wool for warmth. 11 to 10,000 years ago, we start domesticating goats, which creates milk for cheese. Cheese is a portable protein. You're able to carry it with you. Like meat, you can't carry with you. You have to eat it. You have to cook it. Otherwise, it will spoil. Now, there are ways of turning it into jerky, but that also makes it harder to digest. So cheese is portable protein. And so we get dogs and sheep and goats. And notice we're not eating any of these animals. If we can avoid it, we don't eat them. They have other functions. Now, if things really get bad, or the sheep and the goats are at the end of their life, and maybe even the dogs, people will eat them. But they're not specifically for food. They're for other purposes. And they're to provide protection, to provide warmth, wool, and provide food, milk, replenishable food. Once you eat a goat, you can't get more milk. So more wealth equals a better life. But it's now tied to the animal needs for food. Dogs will learn how to eat the scraps from humans. Humans share their food. It's probably why dogs become the first domesticated animal, that they can eat much of the same stuff. Sheep and goats, on the other hand, they don't eat what humans eat. And so now people can't go wherever they want. If they're going to domesticate sheep and goats, they have to go only to places that sheep and goats can eat. And so now you're being tied to a smaller area. Agriculture. More time in this similar area, people begin to learn how to interact with seeds. You eat a watermelon, you get all these seeds. What do you do with it? Well, you throw it on the ground, right? And the year passes, and watermelons grow where you threw the seeds. And you go, hey, stuff is growing. And so there's a transition period between people's mobility and interactivity where they are moving, but they're coming back to the same places, right? You're going up into the highlands in the summer where there's more grass and more meadows for the sheep and the goats, and then you're coming down during the winters when in the highlands everything dies. So you come down into the lowlands. So there's a long period, about 5,000 years, give or take, of people interacting, still on the move, starting to see that they could do things with seeds. But what we're seeing, though, is that people are realizing that if they settle, if they stay in the river valleys where there's water, if they invest more time growing something, they can control it and gain more food security. Look at the image of corn up on the screen. Wild corn is on the left. Early domesticated corn is in the middle. The modern domesticated corn. Look at how much more food that can produce. The problem is that agriculture is back-breaking year-round work. But it does produce 100 times more food per acre. So you don't have to look for food. You don't have to hope food will come to you. You have to go and find it. You can create it. And it's going to be agonizingly brutal work. But it will produce enough food in 20 acres to feed an entire family and create a small surplus. So what humans start doing is investing that time, investing that energy, because now it makes sense. It's slowly but surely, if you're in the right place, it makes sense to do. And so in these river valleys, in what will become China, and what will become the Indian subcontinent, and what will become the Middle East and Egypt, you start to see people settling down and staying in places. And what they do is start to breed plants in order, like our corn, to produce more food and especially easier digestion. So we have been, when people are like, I don't want genetically modified food. The problem is we've been genetically modifying food literally since we started eating food. Since we started growing it, we started modifying it. Because a lot of food is real hard to digest. And so what we did was make it tastier, make it sweeter, make it bigger, make it more. Advantages in agriculture. Well, agriculture is the greatest thing that ever happened to humans. It is bar none the thing that changes human society more than anything else. And if you want to say, well, industrialization or writing, well, those come because you have agriculture. You can't get those things without agriculture. Every piece of the modern world is built on the fact that somebody is a farmer who produces more food than they consume. See, I don't. You don't. You're listening to this. You probably, unless you are one of the 2%, thank you. But if you're 98%, you consume vastly more food than you produce. And so what agriculture does is allow a surplus, which allows for a couple of things. The first is future savings. If you have a surplus, you can sell it, you can keep it, you can save it. You have something for the future in case things go bad in the future. The other thing is you can leave it. You can inherit it. You can create generational wealth. Second thing is survivability. Better nutrition, more calories, more kids will live. Remember that 50% died before the age of 15? Well, that will start to slowly but steadily go down. More children will live. Populations will start to rise. Then you get specializations. See, now you have a surplus. Well, now, with that surplus, not everybody needs to be a farmer. Not everyone needs to produce their own food. So what you start to do is get specialists. Stop farming to create and sell stuff. And the most important stuff that they start to create is things for food. It's either tools for farmers to make life easier, or it's ways of storing food or cooking it or making it easier. So easier work for farmers, and then the crafter sells it. The crafter makes a pot. Why do you need a pot with a lid on it? To store grain. Well, to keep out rats. All of our little plastic containers and all that, all they have, all that ceramic, all that pottery was just to keep animals out of the food. So, but if I'm a farmer, I don't got time for this. But so what happens is someone takes the time, they say, oh, I got to make, I'll take the mud, I'll dry it, I'll make a pot. And someone looks at it and goes, hey, that's really good. It works really well. Can you make me one? And the guy goes, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't really have the time. I got to make the food. He's like, well, how about I pay you? I'll pay you in the food that you don't have time to make. I'll give you a bushel of grain. I'll give you a bushel of corn. In fact, I'll give you more than you would make. So you have a surplus. And now the guy goes, now I'm making a profit. I will get in trade more food than I would make if I did it myself. And it's less back-breaking work. It's not easy. It's not like, woo, I'm having a party. But it is easier to do. Okay, I'll do it. And then somebody else sees it and says, hey, how about, can you make one for me? Can you make a bunch of pots for me? I need like 5. I have more fields. I need 10 pots. I need a whole grain storage. I need it. We're grinding it down into flour. Can you make something that's even better? And so the crafter starts making wealth. And at some point, the farmer has to, the crafter, the pottery maker, has to decide, do they do pottery full time and give up on farming, hopefully to make a bigger profit, or do they give up on the pottery? Because one or the other has to go, because you can't do both equally well. And so what happens is you get specialization. And then what happens is somebody says, hey, I've got a second son. My eldest son is going to get the farm, but I don't know what to do with my second son. Can he train with you? Can he learn to be make pottery? And I go, I guess, but I have to feed him, right? He's going to hang out. He's going to be around all day. And the dad says, okay, I'll pay you to teach him. I'll give you a couple bushels of grain just to have him hanging around. And he can help you as he gets, because now he's going to apprentice. So as as you teach him, he'll start to do some of the easier jobs for you. Well, that sounds like a good idea. And so now education gets sold to younger generations or to foreigners. Because here's the thing, settled people don't produce enough. They don't have enough for themselves. They never did. Towns, cities, hamlet always have to suck in either food or resources. Like you're in the middle of a river valley. You're in the mud, right? You're in the Euphrates River. Great. I'm going to make a metal farming rake. Great. Where am I getting the metal from? Where am I getting the ore from? Where? It's not in the mud. It's not in the river. There's no metal around. There's no ores around. That's the thing. The rivers have washed all of that stuff away. So there are no great gold mines in like Kansas. Colorado, yes. Kansas, no. Why? Because the Mississippi River has, over its millions of years of flowing, washed all that away, but has left dirt and mud that's awesome for growing food, but terrible for minerals. The minerals have been washed to the sea. It's why the seas are salty. So foreigners come down to trade, say, the metal, and they're looking at my pots and they're like, hey, that's interesting. Can I buy one of those? And you say, sure. What do you got? I got ore. I got metal. Okay, I'll take that. How about, I got nothing to do for a couple months while the rain seasons come in. Can you teach me how to do it? And then I'll take it back to my home. And I'll start the new system. And so knowledge will spread from town to town to town, from generation to generation. What's the disadvantage of settling down? Women lose rights. Women and children's labor becomes less valuable. Why? Because they can't do the back-breaking farming that now feeds people. They can do the other jobs. And so women's jobs become women's jobs. And they become looked down upon. They become less valuable. Oh, you're milking the goats? That's a woman's job. Or it's a children's job, which is even worse. And so women lose rights. They lose their independence from men. Because now their success is not tied to the success of the town, of the tribe, of the group. It's tied to the success of a husband or a father. The city may do really well and may be really rich, but if your fathers are drunk or your husband dies early, does the wealth of the town help you? No. And so you should be seeing already a change in economics. So we see this in the Game of Thrones prequel, House of the Dragon. Whereas the mother says to her daughter, you will lie in the birthing bed soon enough. And she says, I'd rather serve as a knight and ride to battle and glory. And the mom responds, we have royal wombs, you and I. The childbed is our battlefield. Notice, again, dying is still a thing for women. We must learn to face it with a stiff lip. Women's worlds get smaller because of agriculture, which is the best thing that ever happened to people. It's also the worst thing that happened to women. Kids lose access to sexual partner choice, friends choice, life choice, as life is transferred from the tribe of a couple hundred people to the family home. A dozen people, maybe two. Again, the town may succeed. The town may be wealthy. But that no longer helps you because your farm may not succeed. Your husband may not succeed. Your father may not succeed. And that impacts you. And who are you going to marry? Well, before, you got a choice. You could choose a lot of the different boys, a lot of the different kids in the tribe. You could also, in theory, choose not to get married. Not anymore. Because now your marriage as a woman is the next generation of wealth. And so now who are fathers looking for? They're looking for men, young men, whose families have money, whose families have land, who are not only going to take care of you, the daughter, but also help them make money. Horizontal integration. I've got a lot of wheat. I want to marry my daughter off to a boy whose father owns the mill. Because that means all the wheat I take to be turned into flour, I'll get the family price. I may even get it free. And so what this gives, so we had our progress, right? And now we're having our backlash. Because how do you think women and children and young folk feel? And that's Lord's green light. That's Taylor Swift's Run. That's Springsteen's Born to Run, Kerouac's On the Road. Pretty much everything Jim Steinman ever wrote for Meatloaf or Bonnie Tyler is the need to leave, to get away, of being stuck in one place and being dependent on others. Lord and green light. Oh, I wish I could get my things and just go. I'm waiting for it, that green light. I want it. Taylor Swift, give me the keys. I'll bring the car back around. We shouldn't be in this town. Darling, let's run. Run from it all. Jim Steinman has a song, Tire Tracks and Broken Hearts. That's all we're leaving behind. Because the backlash is the loss of independence, especially for women and especially for children. And children's not just like 3-year-olds. It also means anyone who's not a fully independent adult. So that's young men too. You may think if you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, you're an adult, you're a man. No, you're not. I know you're not. How do I know you're not? Because you can't rent a car. You can't smoke cigarettes or cigars. There's limits on what you can do. I go to the bar and no one asks to see my ID. I am an adult. I'm a fully fledged citizen. I vote. I go to the bank. I get loans. I don't ask permission. When I was 20, I had to ask permission all the time. And that's what the disadvantage of settling down is. Whereas when you're in the tribe and on the move, you're always responsible for everybody else. That's a whole different problem. But the idea is very simple. You're independent because everything you're doing is supposed to help everybody else. So there's not limits on what you can do. Go and do and help us. With farming, now you can't move anymore. So the disadvantage of settling down, you can't move. You are tied to the same land regardless of events, of drought, of floods, of locusts. Nomads know where you are and know you have food, which means they're coming for war. Farming is harder. It's more boring than hunting and gathering. It's the constant need to invest in tools, land, children. It is exhausting. And you're still poor. 98% of people are still going to be quote unquote poor. They're going to get by. They're going to have more than nomads would have, but they're not rich. That 2% who are going to have so much that they don't care about working anymore, that they don't care about farming, that's only 2%. So you can't move. You are stuck. Even if bad things happen to you, like locusts come at the end of a bug's life. Sidebar. We have to talk. What is rich and poor? What is poor and rich? Poor, the definition of poor we're going to use in this class, because basically all of you are poor in this class. I am too. We can call ourselves middle class, but middle class is just poor people who don't think of themselves as poor. Because poor is if you lose your income, you can calculate when you'll run out of money. That money is a thing you can run out of. Whereas rich, as we see in Thomas Piketty's book Capital in the 21st century, is something you will never run out of. If you ever watched a movie from the 80s, Brewster's Millions, purchases aren't purchases. I purchased something, I'm now out. I purchased something for $100, I'm out $100. Rich people aren't out $100. They've made an investment on an asset that will go up money. They have so much money they cannot run out because their investments grow faster. This is from Thomas Piketty. Their investments grow faster than the economic growth. So they accumulate money because there's simply less things to spend on. It's why the richest people in America, why rich people in the world are spending money on trying to go to the moon or Mars. There's literally nothing else for them to spend their money on. But going to Mars, that's expensive. That's something only 5 people in the world can do. So that's a way of separating themselves out from other people. Who has a Maserati? Who has a Lamborghini? They all do. Who cares? Right? So then, how do you get rich in the ancient world? You don't have to write this down, but we're going to do a little play. How do you get rich in the ancient world? Well, in year 1, there's you and your 3 neighbors. You each have 20 acres of land. You've got a river between you. Right? You have enough food for your family, and your 20 acres produces, let's say, $100 worth of profit. Now, we don't live in a world with money yet, but it doesn't really matter. It would be $100 worth of barley or wheat or a good that you can then, it's all equivalent. So it's not cash $100, but it doesn't matter. I have $100 worth of profit, just so you understand these numbers. Great. And it's me and my 3 neighbors, and we like each other, and everything's nice. We're getting along. And then a flood hits. But it didn't hit me. But it wiped out my neighbor. So now, in year 2, I have another $100 of profit, so I'm up to $200. My neighbor across the river has $200. The neighbor diagonally from me has $200. But the one who got flooded out has $0 because his land is worth nothing. It's flooded. And now he has to spend that $100 to buy the food he couldn't produce. So what do? Well, you buy that land. You go to your neighbor and say, hey, you need money to buy food. I'll buy you out. I'll buy your land. It was worth $100 last year. I'll pay you $100 for it. It's not worth $100 now. It's flooded. So you buy the land. You connect it to your property. You hire a worker for a couple dollars an hour. You drain that land, and boom, you're now worth another $100. So it took $100 to buy, but you'll gain $100 from it. And in year 3, you're still even with your neighbors. Now you only have 2 more neighbors now, not 3. But you've now added $100 worth of new land, but you had to invest in it. So you're not making the profit yet. Here comes year 4. What do I do with that extra land? I could use it for farming, or I could put animals on it. I could get some goats. I could get some sheep. So I'll take my original 20 acres. That gives me $100 profit. I have my $300 in savings. I will now put animals on the land I bought, and that's going to make me $200 of profit. So now I'm going to be up to $600. But here's the thing. My neighbor across the river, across the way, dies. He has no adult son to take over. His wife wants to move in with her brother in the city. So what do? Well, you buy it. And since they're a neighbor, you pay extra. You've got the money, so you pay a little extra. It was worth $100 per year. You pay $200 just to make sure there's no hard feelings, and the widow feels good. She's going to go off and have her life in the city. She's got other things to worry about. She can't run the farm alone. And you may go, well, why doesn't she hire people to work for her? because the men who work for her won't respect her. She's a woman. So they're just going to take advantage of her. Or murder her and take over the land, something like that. Remember, there's no cops. We haven't made an army yet. So, do you really want to hire a bunch of guys who have nothing to do all day to quote unquote work on your farm? Like, that takes trust. So it's just easier than being alone by the river. You sell it to your neighbor. You made a profit. Boom. So you buy it, and you buy it for 2 times the original worth. All right? And what do? You put horses on it. For chariots and wagons and whatnot. So you put horses on it. Now that takes an investment too. But now my $400 in savings, plus my 20 acres, plus my sheep and goats, plus my high value horses. Now all of a sudden, what was $100 at the beginning, I've now got $1,000. I own 3 parcels of land. And my last neighbor, I went from 3 neighbors to now 1. That neighbor has half the money I do. Because that neighbor's just been every year just farming his land, making a decent profit every year. But notice how my investments are accumulating. And then, what do? I buy him out. I make him an offer he can't refuse. I say, look, your land's worth $100 a year. I'll pay you 3 years worth. I'll pay you $300. I could pay him $500. I could pay him $800 and still have a profit. And then what do? I build a mill. And then I charge my neighbors who are outside of my local area. I charge my neighbors for it to use it. And so now I've got my $1,000 in savings. I have to minus the $300 to buy the land. But then I add my $100 for the land I own, the $200 for the animals on the second plot, the $300 for the horses on the third plot, and now the mill is worth $500 a year. And so that's $1,800 in year 6. By year 7, I now have $2,900. Whereas my small farmers with their 20-acre plots, now down the river a bit, are at $700. I now have 8 times the wealth. Oh, I'm sorry. I have 4 times the wealth of my neighbors. By year 20, I'll have 8 times the wealth. So if nothing happens, cash crops, slave labor, trade goods, manufacturing, all of that will equal more money, more power. If bad stuff happens, my wealth becomes protected. I lose my $200 in goats and sheep. I have $2,900. I could buy it again. So my money now protects me. My wealth protects me. And it increases. And why not buy out my other neighbors? And then put on other things. Build a bridge somewhere. And then charge taxes, a tariff to cross it. Right? Things like that. So how do you get rich in the ancient world? Nothing bad happens. You get lucky, and then you invest. So by year 30, we can't even we're not even going to bother calculating. I've bought out my other neighbors. I have a blacksmith. I have cash crops. I've got a meat butcher. I've got a ship dock for river trade up to the next town up the river, right? Do you see how this works? But look at what I had to live 30 years. I had to not get a flood. I had to have nothing bad happen. And so how do you get rich in the ancient world? You get luck plus good decisions, because I had to make those good decisions. And then compounding interest that it has every year. It keeps going up. It keeps going up. It keeps going up. The ancient religions sacrificed to gods and gave alms to the poor. They understood how hard it was to make money. Wealth was not yours. It was a blessing that can be taken away. This is in the Old Testament, it is in the New Testament, and it is in the Quran. There, but for the grace of God go I, is a Christian statement that people understood how precarious life and success was. There, but for the grace of God go I. Her husband died, which means she was out money. She had to move the neighbor. The other neighbor was flooded, and his land became worthless. I wasn't. Job, the entire book of Job, is how a wealthy guy goes to poverty, and even his body betrays him, and then back to being rich again. How? By the will of God. It is luck and fortune. The Romans, fortuna, was a god. You pray, like if you took the lottery, you bought a lottery ticket, you bought Powerball, you prayed to Fortuna. For fortune was a god. God helps those who help themselves. That's also true. You need to be able to make wise choices. Because of that precariousness, avoid addictions, bad investments, gambling your children's future wealth. Fortuna is active. It's not passive. In none of the Abrahamic religions does things just happen to you. You have to be there to take advantage of the blessings. That's why Catholicism is very big on good works. You have to do a thing. You have to be active. You just can't sit at home in your dark room and say, I love Jesus, I'm going to heaven. No, you have to leave the house and you have to do stuff. You have to help people. You have to help the poor. You have to give money to charity. You have to share your blessing. That's straight Catholicism. So how does legitimacy work in these early cell societies? Expansion. So for nomadic peoples, it's survival. They just see another year or another day or another hour. For settled societies, it's to expand. We just talked about it. You go from 1 plot to 2 plots to 3 plots to 4 plots and then the 7 plots or 8 plots. And you don't just leave those plots the same. You add, you expand wealth and education and possessions. Success equals more wealth, more investments, education, and invention, learning. You get the efficiency of labor. You get more dollars per hour. You get more individual but also social wealth, which leads you to population growth. You need more food, which means you need more land, which means you need more expansion. Nomads believed in survival, just getting by. Settled people is more of everything. Continuous growth. Social Darwinism in the 1900s thought if you were not growing, you were dying. That's these people who talk about population decline now. Korea, China, Japan, even the United States or Western Europe. Oh, the white people aren't having enough kids, or Japan's not having enough kids. They're dying. These are declining societies. The idea that if you are not growing, you are declining is baked in to settled society. Our entire economic system is based on growth. Our entire social security system is based on growth. That there are more people paying into the system than taking out of it. So, continuous growth, more and more and more. Okay, thank you. Be safe. Take care. I hope you're okay, because we did a lot about money. We did a lot about people. We even got to do a stage play, so that was nice. I hope you're okay. Be safe. Take care. See you soon.